Hi everyone. I just wanted to demonstrate the lab that we're going to be doing today that involves mixtures. This is a mini lab, so for this lab you'll be working together as a group to complete the 3 parts of the procedure. Each page will have a drawing task and then an explaining task, and then the other part of your grade will come from actually making the mixtures in the lab. So let me explain the drawing task first and then we'll work with the materials. So on the front side of your assignment, I'll cover the formula. You should see instructions to draw a specific formula that will either be the water, the salt, or the sand from our experiment. And you want to look at the chemical formula when deciding what shapes, how many different shapes to use. Also, how many of each shape there are in a group or molecule, and then how many molecules or compounds you are instructed to draw. So if you look at the directions, it should tell you the chemical formula, and by now you should be able to figure out how to draw a specific shape for that molecule. You can pick the shapes, right? You can pick if you want to use circles and squares or triangles and squares, or if you want to use only circles but you want to make them different colors, for example, which is a common thing that they do in chemistry. So that's the drawing task. Once you complete the drawing task, you'll turn your paper over, and each student will have a different procedure to perform. So this student, it said to mix together 1 gram of sand and 1 milliliter of water. So if I was that student, I would place my medicine cup on the scale and 0 the scale. And then this is the sand. I can tell because it's a tan color. The formula for sand is SiO2, silicon dioxide. And then I would add 1 gram of sand. It's okay if it's like 0.98 or 1.02. It doesn't have to be exact, but you can go for that if you like to. And then I would add the 1 gram of sand to my test tube. To add 1 milliliter of water, I'd use a pipette. And I'd want to first empty the pipette, and then you want to squeeze the bulb, put it under the liquid, and then let it fill up till it's just below the bulb. Once it's just below the bulb, take it out of the liquid, and then you can let go, and that should be 1 milliliter. And I'm gonna add 1 milliliter of water here. So that's why this is a mini lab. It's a pretty short procedure. Each person will have 1 mixture to make, and after you make the mixture, you wanna examine the mixture, notice whether it dissolves or not. One of the mixtures will involve the 2 powders, so that should tell you something about that. And then on the back of your paper, there's a place for you to explain how you would separate your mixture. So this is sand and water. You would want to think of a creative way to separate the sand from the water. If you can't think of a way to conserve both the sand and the water, then you could come up with a method that at least conserves the sand. So you could first try to think of a way to separate the sand and the water so that we get both the water and the sand back, but separately. If you can't think of a way to do that, then you could come up with a way to at least get the sand back and remove the water from the sand. That would be another idea. The second person in your group will make a salt and water mixture. You just swirl it a little bit to see if it dissolves. And then the third person in your group will make a sand and salt mixture, and then think about how to separate those 2 substances from each other. You should work together and share ideas. So if, especially the person with the sand and the salt, I will give you a hint, that's the toughest mixture to think of a way to separate. But if you do the steps in order, coming up with a method first for the sand and the water, and then for the salt and the water, that will make it easier for you to come up with a method for the sand and the salt if you do the mixtures in that order. So each person is responsible for making 1 mixture, making 1 drawing, and then coming up and reporting out on the idea that they had for separating that mixture.